The Galactic Academy of Advanced Sciences had stood for 3,000 cycles at the heart of the Centaurus cluster, a monument to the intellectual superiority of the Council races. Its crystalline spires pierced the atmosphere of Academus Prime, refracting the light of twin suns into cascades of color that could be seen from orbit. Within its walls, the brightest minds of 200 species studied the most complex mysteries of the universe. No human had ever set foot inside. Not because of any explicit prohibition. The Academy's charter technically allowed any species to apply, but the entrance examinations were calibrated for beings whose civilizations had mastered faster-than-light travel for millennia, whose understanding of quantum mechanics was encoded in their very languages, whose children learned multidimensional mathematics before they could walk. Humanity, having only stumbled into the galactic community 40 years prior, was considered quaint. Promising, perhaps, but generations away from Academy standards. Which made the presence of Maya Chen in the Advanced Temporal Mechanics Lecture Hall something of an administrative nightmare. Professor Vexthucken, a crystalline whose body refracted thought itself into visible light patterns, paused mid-lecture when he noticed the discrepancy. Among the towering Krethel, the six-limbed hexapods and the floating ethereals, there sat a human. Small, dark-haired, wearing what appeared to be clothing stitched together from salvaged ship materials, furiously scribbling notes on an actual paper notebook. Vexthucken's voice resonated through the chamber like wind through crystal chimes. Student, identify yourself. Maya looked up, her brown eyes widening. For a moment she seemed ready to bolt, then her jaw set with determination. Maya Chen, Student ID 77492 Delta. The professor's crystalline structure flickered with confusion as he accessed the Academy database. The ID was valid. It belonged to a hexapod student named Clitac who had withdrawn 3 cycles ago due to a family emergency. The security protocols should have deactivated it immediately. That ID is not yours, Vexthucken stated. No, sir, Maya admitted, standing up. Around her, students shifted with interest. Humans were rare enough in galactic space. One here was unprecedented. I found it in a recycling processor on Station 17. I didn't mean to steal it. I really wanted to see what the lectures were like. You found a deactivated ID chip and somehow reactivated it. The professor's tone carried disbelief. And fooled our biometric scanners. Maya's cheeks colored. I may have written a small bypass algorithm and created a holographic overlay for the retinal scans and spoofed the genetic markers. It took me 3 weeks. The lecture hall erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds, clicks, whistles, harmonic tones that translated to shocked murmurs. The Academy's security systems were designed by the collective's finest cryptographers. They had never been breached. Security, Vexthucken began, but Maya interrupted. Wait, please. You were just explaining the Kurvesh paradox, about how temporal causality loops can't exist in standard spacetime because the universe self-corrects through quantum decoherence. But that's not quite right, is it? Every being in the room went silent. The Kurvesh paradox was a cornerstone of modern temporal theory, proven and reproven for centuries. Explain yourself, the professor said coldly. Maya's nervousness seemed to evaporate when talking about science. The math assumes that quantum decoherence operates uniformly across all reference frames, but if you account for gravitational gradient variations in extreme spacetime curvature, like near a black hole's event horizon, the decoherence rate becomes non-uniform. That creates pockets where causality loops could theoretically stabilize. She grabbed her notebook, flipping it open to reveal pages dense with equations. I worked it out last night. If you introduce a variable coefficient to the Kurvesh equation here, she pointed to a string of symbols that made several students lean forward, and integrate across a non-Euclidean manifold, the paradox resolves itself. Causality loops don't violate physics. They're just incredibly rare phenomena in extreme conditions. Vexthucken's crystalline form went utterly still, a sign of deep thought among his species. He projected her equations into the air using his natural abilities, examining them line by line. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. "This is," he began, and his voice carried an emotion that translator AIs struggled to convey. "Correct. Approximately 87% of the theoretical framework is sound. The remaining 13% requires experimental validation, but the mathematics—" He turned to face Maya fully. "How long have you been studying temporal mechanics?" "About 6 months," Maya said. "But I've been interested in physics since I was 8. We didn't have much on the colony where I grew up, Mars tertiary settlement, but we had an old data archive. I read everything I could find." "6 months," the professor repeated. "And you taught yourself temporal mechanics to a level that our doctoral students require 4 cycles to achieve." "Well," Maya said sheepishly, "I had a lot of free time. I work maintenance on cargo haulers and the shifts are long. I'd study during the quiet periods." By the time the lecture ended, news of the human intruder had spread throughout the academy. Maya found herself escorted, not roughly, but firmly, to the office of Dean Korzeth, a being whose species had evolved from hive-minded insects and still retained partial collective consciousness. The dean's office was vast, with windows overlooking the academy gardens where plants from 1,000 worlds grew in carefully maintained biomes. Korzeth herself was smaller than Maya expected, her chitinous body gleaming with iridescent colors that shifted with her mood. "Miss Chen," the dean began, her mandibles clicking in a pattern that conveyed both irritation and curiosity. "You have committed approximately 17 violations of Academy protocol, not to mention several galactic laws regarding identity fraud and security breaches." "Yes, ma'am," Maya said, standing straight despite her fear. "I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't have done it, I've wanted to study here my entire life. When I found that ID chip, I couldn't help myself." "Your entire life," Korzeth repeated. "You are, what, 20 standard years old?" 22, and I know humans haven't been in space very long. I know everyone thinks we're primitive, but we're not stupid. We're just behind, and some of us are trying really hard to catch up." The dean's colors shifted to something that might have been amusement. "Professor Vexthucken has sent me your work on the Kurvesh paradox. He believes it may represent a genuine breakthrough in temporal mechanics theory." Maya's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really? He has also reviewed the Academy's security footage from the past 2 weeks." The dean activated a holographic display showing Maya in various lecture halls. Advanced quantum field theory, exotic matter manipulation, hyperspatial navigation, xenobiology. You have been attending lectures across 7 different disciplines. "I wanted to learn as much as I could before I got caught," Maya admitted. "And these," the dean gestured, and more holograms appeared. "Assignments submitted under Clitacken's ID. You completed problem sets for all 7 courses. Professor Thimmelak in exotic matter manipulation believes that your solution to the Harbinger problem is the most elegant she has seen in her 300 years of teaching." Maya bit her lip. "I really am sorry about the breaking and entering part." Korzeth's colors shifted again, cycling through patterns that conveyed complex emotions. "Miss Chen, you have presented us with a unique dilemma. On one hand, you have broken numerous laws and protocols. On the other hand, you have demonstrated capabilities that far exceed what we believed possible for your species at this stage of development. Are you going to have me arrested?" "That depends," the dean said. "Answer me honestly. How did you acquire the knowledge necessary to understand our lectures? They are conducted in galactic standard, yes, but they assume foundational education that humans do not possess. Your species has barely developed basic FTL theory." Maya took a deep breath. "After first contact, when the galactic community gave Earth access to the basic archives, I downloaded everything I could. Terabytes of data, Physics texts, mathematical proofs, historical documents. I didn't understand most of it at first. The concepts were so far beyond what humans had discovered. But I kept studying. I'd work my shifts, then spend every free moment reading, learning, working problems. For how long? 14 years, since I was 8. The dean's antennae twitched. You have been teaching yourself advanced galactic sciences since childhood. My parents died when I was 7, Maya said quietly. Reactor accident on the colony. I was sent to live with my aunt on a cargo station. She worked double shifts to support us. I was alone a lot. The data archives they were like magic. All this knowledge, these amazing things that were possible, it gave me something to hope for. Korzith was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a gentleness that surprised Maya. You remind me of myself long ago. My hive was small, insignificant. We were not supposed to achieve sentience according to the theories of the time, but we did, and we had to fight to be recognized, to be allowed to learn. She turned to gaze out the window at the Academy grounds. The Galactic Council has certain prejudices. They believe that species must evolve along certain timelines, achieve certain milestones in a specific order. Humanity troubles them because you advance in unpredictable bursts. You went from pre-industrial to nuclear weapons in less than 2 centuries. You developed digital computing at what we consider an absurd pace, and you are aggressive by galactic standards, warlike. We're getting better, Maya said defensively. Perhaps, but the Council has recommended that humanity be managed, kept at arm's length from advanced technologies until you mature as a species. Applications from human students to the Academy are automatically rejected, not because of the entrance requirements, but because of political pressure. Maya felt her heart sink. So even if I hadn't snuck in, you would never have been admitted through proper channels, no matter your qualifications. Yes. The dean turned back to face her. But you did sneak in, and now several of our most esteemed professors are arguing that you should be allowed to stay. What? Professor Vexthucken believes you have the potential to revolutionize temporal mechanics. Professor Thimelac says you display intuitive understanding of exotic matter that takes most species millennia to develop. Even Professor Zorquin, who has never said a kind word about any student in the century I have known him, describes your work as acceptably competent, which from him is the highest praise imaginable. The dean's colors shifted to something warm, almost golden. Miss Chen, I am going to make you an offer. The Academy will not press charges for your various infractions. In fact, we will retroactively legitimize your presence here. You will be enrolled as a full student with access to all facilities and courses. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Really? But what about the Council? The Council, Korzith said with unmistakable satisfaction in her harmonic undertones, cannot interfere with the Academy's admissions decisions once a student has been accepted. It is part of our ancient charter. They can complain, and they will loudly, but you will be under the Academy's protection. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, but understand this. You will be held to the same standards as every other student here. Higher, perhaps, because you will be watched closely by those who wish to see you fail. You will face prejudice, discrimination, and students who resent your presence. It will not be easy. Maya straightened her shoulders, meeting the dean's multifaceted gaze. I've been alone on a cargo station studying alien physics textbooks for 14 years. Easy would be boring. For the first time, Dean Korzith's colors flashed with something that could only be laughter. Then, welcome to the Galactic Academy of Advanced Sciences, Miss Chen. Try not to break into any more secured facilities. No promises, Maya said with a small smile, but I'll try. 3 months later, Professor Vexthucken stood before the annual Galactic Science Symposium, the most prestigious gathering of scientific minds in known space. Behind him, a holographic display showed complex equations and experimental data. And so, he concluded his presentation, Preliminary testing confirms the Chen-Vex-Thucken theory of causal loop stabilization. We have successfully created and maintained a microscopic causality loop for 0.73 seconds. The implications for temporal research are profound. The audience erupted in the multilingual chaos of excited scientists. Questions flew in dozens of languages and communication methods. "Where is your co-author?" someone called out. "This Chen, I have not heard of them." Vex-Thucken's crystalline form flickered with unmistakable pride. "She is currently in her 3rd month of studies at the Academy. She is human." The symposium hall went silent. "Impossible," a ethereal scientist finally said. "Humans lack the necessary." "Humans lack nothing except opportunity," Vex-Thucken interrupted, "and the Council's willingness to provide it. If this symposium has demonstrated anything, it is that we have been foolish to judge any species by our preconceived timelines." Miss Chen taught herself advanced temporal mechanics by reading textbooks in her spare time. She solved a 3,000-cycle-old paradox in a single evening. She represents not an anomaly, but a glimpse of humanity's potential. He paused, letting his words resonate. "The Council fears humans because they are unpredictable, because they advance too quickly, because they are aggressive. Perhaps instead, we should consider what humanity could contribute to our collective knowledge if given the chance. How many other Maya Chens are out there, working maintenance jobs on cargo haulers, dreaming of the stars, teaching themselves science from discarded data archives?" In the back of the symposium hall, Maya sat in borrowed formal attire, tears streaming down her face as the scientific community of 200 species rose to their feet in applause. She had snuck into the Academy by mistake. Now she would show them all what humanity could do by choice.